Do you dream of early retirement, receiving passive income each month from your rental properties? Make that dream a reality by investing with a team that has helped thousands of investors achieve early retirement through real estate investing. Rent to Retirement offers fully turnkey properties that are newly built or renovated, leased, and professionally managed, allowing you to invest with confidence out of state. They have single-family, multifamily, new build, and syndication opportunities across multiple markets. Rent to Retirement assists investors in learning how to build a comprehensive business plan with the best investment and tax strategies to achieve financial freedom through real estate investing. There's no excuse not to get started in real estate investing when you have the right team and systems already in place. To learn more, visit renttoretirement.com/daily. That's renttoretirement.com/daily. Or call 800-311-6781. That's 800-311-6781 to learn more about how you can get started investing in some of the best cash flow markets today. This is Optimal Finance Daily, episode 2254. What is financial trauma and how to heal? By Daniella of I Like to Dabble.com. And I'm your host and personal finance enthusiast, Diana Merriam. We have a new author today. I'll tell you more about Daniella right after the reading. So for now, let's get right to today's post as we optimize your life. What is financial trauma and how to heal? By Daniella of I Like to Dabble.com. 1/3 of millennials have experienced some form of financial trauma, according to a 2016 study from Dr. Galen Buckwalter. It's no wonder when millennials graduated into the Great Recession and then years later, a global pandemic. Now many of them struggle with rising student debt, widening pay gaps, a housing crisis, and inflation to top it off. Their financial trauma doesn't have to be a singular, dramatic event either. They could experience any sort of financial stress that threatens their safety and could also be generational, intergenerational, relational, societal, or systematic. But millennials aren't the only folks dealing with financial trauma. Several Americans have experienced financial trauma at least once in their lives, with the LGBTQ community likely experiencing higher rates of financial trauma due to the discrimination they face in school, the workplace, and in society, being unhoused as a child from a family that doesn't accept them, and other factors. Financial trauma often intersects with other mental health issues one might experience, like ADHD and PTSD, as well as racism, classism, and sexism in our society, and can manifest in several ways. For example, one of these ways is imposter syndrome. What is financial trauma? Trauma is defined as an emotional response to a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. Financial trauma is when you have trauma relating to finances that can cause a toxic or disturbed relationship with money. Financial trauma could also be from your earliest memories from childhood that had anything to do with finances. Dr. Galen Buckwalter, a research psychologist of 25 years, explains financial trauma as being characterized as a dysfunctional reaction to chronic financial stress. What causes financial trauma? When we think of what is characterized as trauma, we often refer to deeply traumatic events like a death, but it can also be caused by certain circumstances and events where there's a threat to your safety or well-being. Financial trauma can be caused by any number of things, including, but not limited to, poverty, being unhoused, inability to pay bills, food insecurity, divorce, bankruptcy, evictions, financial abuse, medical debt, student debt, credit card debt, aggressive debt collection, identity theft or regular theft and robbery, falling victim to financial scams, MLMs, and pyramid schemes, job loss and other types of work trauma, being underpaid, and discrimination. Financial trauma can even be generational when you experienced a parent that had a negative relationship with money and you start to mimic that behavior. Symptoms of financial trauma. If you often ruminate on failure or have a negative emotional response to basic thoughts about money, you might have some financial trauma that you haven't processed. There are several symptoms of financial trauma, actually. Some of these include financial avoidance, impulsive spending, compulsive shopping, hoarding, workaholism, and lack of boundaries. These symptoms can manifest in the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses. Fight response. A fight response is an act of self-preservation. It includes healthy reactions like creating boundaries, being proactive and assertive, and being a strong leader. When someone has been exposed to intense trauma over time, the response can become unhealthy and manifest in controlling behaviors, bullying, and demanding perfection from others. An example of a healthy fight response would be if someone at work asks you to work extra unpaid hours during the weekend, and you respond with, "I respectfully cannot take on unpaid work. If you'd like to discuss this further, I'd be happy to include human resources in this discussion." An example of an unhealthy fight response would be that same scenario, but instead of the former response you gave, you instead respond with something that could be personally insulting to the requester. Flight response. A flight response happens when something seems impossible to fight. One may decide to remove themselves from the situation entirely. In healthy situations, a flight response can help you disengage from harmful conversations and leave unhealthy relationships. On the flip side, an unhealthy flight response can lead to obsessive tendencies, needing to stay busy at all times, constant fear, and workaholic tendencies. An example of a healthy flight response is when you leave an abusive partner. An example of an unhealthy flight response when you don't leave an abusive partner but live in constant fear, so you distract yourself by staying busy at all times as an attempt to escape the perceived danger. Freeze response. A freeze response is when people literally freeze up and pause when faced with danger. A healthy freeze response can look like mindfulness, awareness, and being fully present in the moment. An unhealthy freeze response can cause you to disassociate, isolate, and have difficulty making decisions or trying new things. An example of a healthy freeze response is when you're presented with a side hustle idea. You pause to be mindful of the opportunity and if it's right for you, as well as increase your awareness through research before diving in. An example of an unhealthy response to a new side hustle idea could be the difficulty to make a decision to move forward with it and the fear of trying that new idea, even though it seems interesting to you after you've done research on it. Fawn response. Fawning is the least known trauma response. It's primarily linked to people pleasing. People who spend a lot of time around toxic people will go above and beyond to please the toxic person in an attempt to neutralize the threat. A healthy fawn response could manifest as compassion for others, compromising, and trying to be as fair as possible. An unhealthy fawn response manifests as codependent relationships, loss of self, and people-pleasing to the point of destruction. An example of a healthy fawn response would be compromising with a boss about certain expectations on a project. An unhealthy example of a fawn response is staying at a job with a toxic boss, going above and beyond for that boss, and people-pleasing your boss at the expense of your mental health and career. This could also intersect into some work trauma that you've experienced in the past or are currently experiencing. How to cope with and heal financial trauma. Coping and healing from financial trauma starts with looking inwards and getting in tune with your behavior. Pay attention to how you interact with money, including financial situations and discussions about money. Track your emotional responses when you think of how you spend money, save money, and even how you make money. If you get emotionally triggered by something, that gives you a sign that it might be connected to something else in your past. What comes up when that emotional trigger happens? Journaling, talking to others in your life about money, therapy, and methods like EMDR can help you access and process past life experiences. You can also talk to others in your life that you can trust and you feel like they won't judge you, like a partner, friend, or family member. Throw out the idea that money is taboo and shouldn't be talked about. That only adds fuel to any current money drama and that it's something you should be ashamed of. Normalize talking about money in your household, with your partner, and even your friends. The journey to healing is not linear, but it starts with awareness and support. the more supported you feel, the more action you can take. You just listened to the post titled, "What is Financial Trauma and How to Heal?" by Daniella of I Like to Dabble.com.
As if the McCrispy couldn't get any better, Bacon and Ranch just entered the chat. The Bacon Ranch McCrispy, available at participating McDonald's for a limited time. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. That's the sound of another sale on Shopify. The moment a business dream becomes reality. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. They simplify selling online and in person and provide 24/7 support so you can focus on successfully growing your business. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/offer22, all lowercase.
Daniella is a software engineer and sidepreneur who has gone from 0 to 12 income streams in 4 years, paid off over 40 grand of debt in the process, and moved 2,100 miles across the country. Prior to that, she was going through back-to-back layoffs, had no savings, and was living paycheck to paycheck. Now she teaches thousands of others how to start and grow their own side hustles and businesses, get their money right, find remote work that aligns with what they really want to do, and live their best life. Navigating and healing from any kind of trauma is no easy task, and that includes financial trauma. According to a recent Forbes article, quote, "People have intense stress, paranoia, expectations, fears, and concepts about money and finances in a way that almost nothing else can compare. Money can equate to security, safety, status, or power. Money can be interpreted as worthiness. There are so many unconscious ideas embedded in our relationship to money that it only makes sense that financial trauma is pervasive, yet goes largely unaddressed," end quote. I have a friend who shared with me recently her history with financial trauma and abuse. She grew up in a household where her father was abusive, and because her mother didn't have access to her own money, she wasn't able to leave. This had a huge impact on my friend, because money represented access to safety. But as she got older and financially secure, it was hard for her to recognize that her very real scarcity in childhood was now perceived scarcity. Her circumstances no longer warranted her hiding or hoarding money, but her nervous system hadn't caught up yet. Therapy and awareness around her emotional triggers was huge in helping her process her trauma and form a new relationship with money. That should do it for today. Thank you for subscribing or following the show. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow where your optimal life awaits.